I'm hoping my voice holds out. I'm off my deathbed, sick bed, whatever it was. But my body is here. My voice, I think I left somewhere in North Carolina. So if you'll bear with me, I hope it'll be fine. But I want you to open your Bibles today to the Gospel of John. We're going to be looking at John chapter 8, verses 31. And I'm going to read that down to probably 38. So if you can find that quickly here in the Gospel of John 31. Jesus is doing some teaching, and he's teaching about who a disciple is. How do you make that transition? How do you become one of Jesus's followers? He says this, verse 31. Then Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." Hearing this, the crowd answers him, "We're descendants of Abraham and have never been in bondage to anyone. How is it that you say we'll be made free?" Jesus answers, verse 34, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not continue in the house forever. The Son continues forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be made free indeed." I'm going to stop there. May God bless the reading and the hearing of God's holy word. So I want to give you a quiz today, a little bit of quiz off of the 4th of July and all of the things you've seen on TV. I'm sure you're experts because you're here today. It means you're the brightest and the best, right? Say yes. Yes, you are. So here's your 4th of July question. What is the famous line in the Declaration of Independence? Okay, it's a famous line. It doesn't start the first paragraph. It begins the second paragraph in the Declaration of Independence. Very famous. You should know this. Does anybody get it? Come on. Give it a shot. Just, what do you remember from the Declaration of Independence? We need to go back to school, folks. How about this? We hold these to be right. We hold these truths to be self-evident. You know, the framers, they're getting together and they're trying to make this declaration. So they're trying to give it some weight, a foundation. So they're going to say, here's what we hold true. And it's so true, it's self-evident to anyone. And they go into that. Now, it's interesting today because that idea of truth, from my perspective in 2019, truth is a very contentious word. As a matter of fact, I think truth may actually be the root of many of our conflicts today across the world, but especially here in the United States. It triggers anger, it triggers hate. It's just an amazing thing, a little word like truth, what it can do to us. Why is that? We're going to talk about it today before we come to this table. You know, I've been watching the world around us over the past years, and I've observed this phenomena, and you tell me, have you seen this too? And here's how I'm going to summarize it. Two very intelligent, well-rounded, mature people can witness the same event, the same occurrence, yet they can come away with two completely different stories and views of what happened. I see heads nodding, so I thought maybe I'm a little weird on that, but I see it a lot with my friends. I have friends on all spectrums of political thought, of theological thought, and it's amazing to see my friends who I love, friends I've known, friends I don't mind hanging out with. They'll both witness the same event, and I see what they post on Facebook. Amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, how can two people come up with such opposite views of what's going on? How can they be so different? And so I'm an inquiring mind, and I want to know, how can this be? And as I began to wrestle a little bit with this, especially in terms of the passage today, I think it boils down to one word. And it's the word I started with today. It's that word, truth. And whenever you begin to talk about truth, it begs that Pontius Pilate question. You know what Pontius Pilate question? He's very famous for asking a question to Jesus. Here's your second chance to redeem yourself. You missed the Declaration of Independence. What's the Pontius Pilate question? What is truth? Chris gets a gold star. What is truth. If truth matters, and I guess I would suggest is the key to any civilized human interaction, we have to have some kind of, at least a universe of truth, then why don't we all recognize it when we see it? I think we do recognize truth, but I want you to look to your right. I hate it when pastors do this. Look to your left, look in front of you, and look behind you. Some of you just look like you're having trouble with your neck today, and I thought I'd go through a little technique. No, somebody you just saw, your truth is different than theirs, right? You're sitting next to people who have a truth. You came in here with a truth, and I can tell you, it's probably not exactly the same as those people you just noticed. Again, how can this be? In the church, here we are. We're held together. Jesus Christ, the body. We are his body. He's the head. How can we have such different ideas of the truth? How can truth be true, yet so relative? You know, I'm a bit, in my personality type, I'm a bit black and white, right? Things are either right or wrong for me. They're either true or not true. And so it's this whole idea of truth may not be true or a different truth, and my head wants to explode. Yet, as I've said, you can witness something today, and somebody with you, and y'all will describe it differently. Have you ever watched those iconic, the detective shows on TV when they catch the criminal and they go to trial? Or maybe it's like the old Perry Mason, it's some kind of Matlock. I know I'm dating myself with these references, but I am 62. So, they go to the court. And you know the scene, you have the witness is placed in the witness box, right? They're gonna give testimony. I had you do that earlier with the offering. They're gonna give testimony. And so all of a sudden that witness stands up, points across. Tom, I'm not pointing at you, but I'm pointing at you. Points across and says, I saw it and he did it, right? It's that big moment. Eyewitness testimony. So powerful. Do you know eyewitness testimonies are no longer held as very valid? Did you know that? Check this out, just doing a little research. It's easy to understand why we think they are, right? Because we trust our perceptions and our experiences. We say, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Seeing is believing. That statement itself is maybe the most convincing evidence we allow. However, being convinced isn't the same thing as relaying a truth to somebody. Think about that. Being convinced of something does not necessarily mean it's true. This is going to rock your world. It's rocking my world a little bit. But since the late 1980s, guess what's come along? DNA, right? DNA analysis revolutionized the forensic sciences. It seems saying something is true, even being that eyewitness, is more fallible than we ever thought. And they're retesting now with DNA testing. It's providing this unprecedented level of accuracy. And now they're going back to old cases. And this is sad, but I guess at least it's happening now. There was one study was done of 358 people that had been convicted and sentenced to death. That means they had been convicted for something, probably murder of some kind. They're sentenced to death. And they went back and they tested those 358 people. Now, this isn't all the people that have ever been put in jail. It's just a select group. But they tested the 358 people. And guess what they found? When they retested them with DNA evidence, they found that 71% of them were not guilty. I didn't believe it when I read the study. But then I read a couple more studies. And I'm like, 71%. And they were exonerated. So just so you know, they were let out. Greg Hurley, he works for the Knowledge and Information Services. He's an analysis for them and for the National Center for State Courts. He says this: although witnesses can often be very confident that their memory is accurate when identifying a suspect, the malleable nature of human memory and visual perception. Are you getting this? Our memory can kind of move a bit. Our perception moves a little bit. It makes eyewitness testimonies, he says now, one of the most unreliable forms of evidence. Who would have thought that? What can we stand on? What can we believe? It goes back to my original opening scenario of two people witnessing an event, and they can be so differing in their view of the truth. How can we be an eyewitness, especially people of faith, and proclaim that truth to others and have it actually, in some cases, be wrong? How does it happen? Well, I think the study on eyewitness testimony is about to end, so if you'll bear with me. But just one more little article I read. John Timmer wrote an article entitled "The Science of Why Eyewitness Testimony is Often Wrong." He says, the answer to why two people, my question at the beginning, why two people can come from completely different positions, having witnessed the same thing, is that our brains don't record everything like a video camera. We don't have this perfect picture memory. In fact, our brains actually move that memory. They want to create a coherent picture. And so in that attempt to create a coherent picture, our brains will move things around a little bit. And a lot of this is unconscious. We don't even know what's going on. They say sometimes the stories that our brain creates are very accurate. Perfectly accurate. So in that case, I guess there's a truth. But sometimes they're completely fictional. Do you know that's why they can have people do sketches of criminals and they look completely different? It's amazing that our brains would do all this. So one of the very famous, now deceased, big political movers and shakers of the day, his name is Patrick Moynihan. He's credited with saying this: you're entitled to your own opinion. Here's your third test. You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own set of the facts, right? He says you can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own set of the facts. He's wrestling with that whole idea of how human beings can differ and how we seem to move off center and we don't even know it. So the question is, when it comes to the idea of truth, and Jesus is so keyed on truth in this passage today, the question is it our truth, or is it their truth, or is it nothing but the truth, right? That's what I wanted us to struggle with a little bit before we come to this table today, because we can be misled. Do you see the screen, the picture on the screen? I might pronounce this wrong, and Kara will help me. Arbit Mach free? Close enough? Okay. If you've ever we visited Dachau on a trip to Europe in Germany, and at all of the major Nazi concentration camps, you'll find this saying. It's on the gates of the concentration camps. And what it actually means is work will set you free. And so the Nazis put these on the camps. Some think that originally they were actually work camps. We know how that story ends, but there's a little backstory here too, because the phrase "work makes you free" comes from a German novel about how criminals, if they were put in a context to work really hard, that work would set them on the right course. And so they took a truth that they believed and they put it on the gates of the prisoner of war, these concentration camps, although we know now the real truth, right? That was their truth, and the people living around these camps actually believed it. They believed they were work camps. We know now they were death camps. So truth can be stretched one way or the other, and it makes a difference, especially for Christians, where we go for truth. And that brings us back to the passage today. Jesus is talking about truth. He's trying to describe where truth can be found, where truth lives. So we not only read it in this passage, there's two other places in John where he talks about truth. In John 4:21, Jesus says, when you know the truth, when you know that truth will set you free. He says the same thing in our passage today. In John 14:6, he says, I am the way and the truth. When you read that word truth in the New Testament, what you're seeing there Aletheia is the Greek word there for truth. It means something that's a fact, a reality. It's the total opposite of false. You see the same word in the Old Testament. The equivalent is emet. It denotes a state of being, it is the case, meaning a fact, what is firm. Now, you know me, I love going back to the Hebrew pictographs of the original Hebrew language. It was always in pictures, and the root words always had 3 letters, the letters represented by pictures. And for this truth in the Old Testament, when you read truth in the Old Testament, that emet word that's there, it has a picture of a bull. That's the aleph, the bull. It has a picture of flowing water, which can mean blood or strong, right? And a picture of crossed sticks, which is a sign. So for the ancient Hebrews, truth meant something very powerful that makes its mark. It's a signpost. It's not moved, right? It's something that you can rely on. Now, I hope I've made the case to you that we've seen that our truth may appear to be a fact to us, may seem really firm, but as human beings, our truth may not be the whole truth. And that's a little scary. It can be affected by our own feelings. It's affected by our own thinking. What we need, what God knows we need, what Jesus knows we need, is a truth that doesn't come from ourselves. See, that's the key. If truth is relied on by our own concept of it, everybody's truth in here is a little bit different. We have nothing to hold us together. Where do we find that real truth? We need something that comes from outside of ourselves. So since we've just celebrated Independence Day, which I tested you on and you did horrible on, by the way, since we just celebrated Independence Day, which is marked by the writing and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I felt it might be really important to see how that Constitutional Congress dealt with this issue that I'm talking about today, the issue Jesus raises, the issues that I think every human being has to find some center in, which is, what is truth? What is the truth? Is it our truth? Is it your truth? Or have we missed the truth altogether? So when the framers of the Declaration of Independence wrote, we find these truths to be self-evident, I think they were making a remarkable theological statement about where truth originates and how we can be clear of the bias that we bring, the mind games. We can get away from those things and away from arguing about truth into understanding real truth. Truth for them, it was self-evident. It means it was revealed, right? It wasn't found within. It's been revealed. It's self-evident. It's not created by human beings. It's not imagined and then written down and defined, but revealed in living evidence. Now, they would say the living evidence was nature, but I'm going to push on this a little bit. I think that living evidence also referred to the Creator God. The framers in the Declaration of Independence did not invent truth, but they understood truth comes from a Creator God. That's why it was self-evident. And in God is real freedom. Not like this saying that the Nazis used. And here's the great news about this. It sounds tough, but to me it makes sense why our country sometimes is at odds, why we find ourselves at odds even with our close friends, is because maybe we're not standing on the right truth. Maybe we're trying to proclaim a truth that doesn't hold the whole picture. We can know what truth is. That's the amazing thing about Christians. We can know what truth is. It's determined by the divine viewpoint. That's God's view. And it's expressed through a very particular revelation. And you know who that is. Jesus is the truth expression. He said, I'm the way, I'm the truth, and the life. It is the truth expression, incarnate. Jesus Christ is the embodiment, the enfleshment of truth. We can see it. We can hear it. We can read the words. They're not made up. They're revealed by the Creator. So how do you live in this real truth? Jesus says, well, read the Bible. Read my words. And then continue in my words. Continue is an interesting word. Jesus says, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you'll know the truth. So if we continue, if we commune in Jesus and in his teachings, we can know the truth. And that truth is what gives us the ability to be set free. It isn't going to be found in a political statement or a political party, or maybe you win the argument because you know more facts than the other person. Truth comes through Jesus Christ. And we know that truth. It's continually being revealed. It's revealed today. That's why I wanted to talk about this. I found this perfect opportunity to say, if you want a look at truth, the truth is found on this table. It's found in Jesus' body, the bread, and the cup, his blood. The truth revealed, incarnate, made real. We continue in that truth when we come to the table, and we're going to do that in just moments. You know, if you really want to know somebody, biblically speaking, is to have an intimate relationship with them. And as we more deeply know Jesus, as we step further and further into a relationship with him, we begin to know more and more of the truth. So I invite you today, taste this meal. Through him, through this meal, through our remembering, we can be set free. Would you pray with me?